These footsteps following you, only a few strides behind now, were so distinct from everything else. It didn't make sense, but your mind convinced you they were hollow. You didn't dare look behind you, though the cold sweat trickling down your back was the first of the sensations to tell you not to. Whoever this was, you felt their stare burrowing into the back of you. It was agony. It physically hurt you. It wasn't in your head. The pain was that of being forced down on your back to a heated metal slab. Your atoms revolted, tears welled up in your eyes, desperate not to scream and beckon the wrath of this thing. Somehow, in your internal struggle, it struck a chord of information, a sensation others had described before you. This was radiation. The back of your legs pricked with heat as you marched up ahead, attempting to gain distance from this person. While your stride quickened, the footsteps behind you remained their steady pace. You didn't understand why, but it could only move at a certain pace. You took your chance. You bolted. Up and through the crowds, in between stalls and carts. Though people stared, you didn't care. Anything not to have your flesh radiated and to collapse in searing pain. You ran across the market until the lactic acid in your limbs forced you to stop. You just had to hide now. An alleyway, to the right. It was the only place left. You snuck down the path. A shadowed street lay ahead with shelves and slats built into the surrounding walls. These were small places to hide, but they were the best you had. Sprinting down this lane as fast as you could, you spied a crevice in the wooden shelves just big enough for you to squeeze yourself inside. You ducked down, shimmying sideways and far enough in so a leg or a shoulder wouldn't stick out. You activated your outfit of obscurity, just like Taggle taught you to. Hands to your shoulders, down your arms, and squeezing your hands together triggered the transformation. The fabric fizzed, like you had been doused in sparkling lemonade. It felt calming, weirdly. This sensation continued, though to a muted degree. Heart thumping in your chest, you held your breath and waited in silence, waiting for the inevitable. It was only a moment of time before you would meet your fate. This figure slinked around the corner, expanding in the dark to seek you out. Even with your magical evasion, you pressed your body back into the wall, concealed in the shadows, out of instinct to hide yourself more. The frame of its face was that of an elongated plague doctor's mask. It was humanoid, but standing at 10 feet tall. Yet your eyes involuntarily shifted away from it. They watered when you attempted to look again. The atmosphere flickered your vision with abandon. You couldn't grasp the full form of this figure, and perhaps that was a good thing. A curse crippled to humanoid form, the catalyst of the void above. Any creature who possessed the mode of fear would have fled from their bodies if it meant they never encountered this figure. Sadly, humans cannot will themselves to die, so escaping is impossible. However, you could try your luck and evade this whole encounter. Try your luck. Countering it with malice would end in certain doom. Remain passive, ignorant even. You would be safe, for now. From the edges of its frame, it warped the light around it, contorting the fabric of reality as it slipped across the market stalls. The wind stilled, the produce greyed. Machinery ceased to function. Even bottles, papers, and books edged their way closer to the figure. No sound arose, even when one of these bottles stumbled from its perch and shattered on the ground. None of the townsfolk noticed. They were blind to it all. This oscillating frame of obsidian was made for you, imprinting only your vision, stalking you, just you. It looked around. Though it had no discernible face, a single oculus rotated inside its head and stared blankly down at you, staring down at your prone form. The pupils slit like a snake's, not having moved an inch since it came into this space. Yet, it didn't react. Not a flicker of movement, not uttering a single word in any audible spoken language. It wasn't just an absence of sound, but it was negative of sound if that were even possible. Its presence reverberated through your head, manifesting as a vacuum to your own thoughts. The only thing you knew was that you wanted it to leave. 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 Its eye rolled over its head again. It found nothing. You managed to hide from its sight. The being contracted itself, becoming nothing but a mass of black floating mid-air. It convulsed, dripping black ink, and those globules vanished into thin air. With one last pulse, the blackness collapsed into a singularity before bursting out of existence. It was gone. It was gone. It was gone, but with something as terrifying as this, you had to be absolutely sure it had left. You sat and waited for several minutes, listening to the crowds of people just the other side of you. Normality had returned, and so after a few minutes, you climbed out of your hiding place. Taking deep breaths, you let the adrenaline run its course through your body, limbs shaking ever so slightly. You still weren't ready to remove the obscurity enchantment. Perhaps when you had left the underground market, you would. Looking up, you saw the pearlized road. The one you had stood and talked to the lady on was above your head, glittering softly. How was this possible? You even spotted shadows of figures walking to and fro above. And on these shelves were old stock, spare pieces of equipment and items that were needed to be repaired. All lay there, meticulously organized by color and their basic structure. But why were they all here? Why were there no guards to keep an eye on these precious things? Weren't they all bound to be stolen? Another law of the land, you didn't understand. There was an abundance of undecipherable things to perforate your vision, objects you didn't know the function of, lives you did not know the history of, and all embedded in the syntax, their foreign frames of reference, light years away from your understanding. You are lost, aren't you? A little child cavorting in games it doesn't know the rules to. Don't step out of line. It may cost you everything. You would have to tell Taggle about this encounter. See if he knew what this creature was, and if he did, if he was willing to speak about it. Perhaps this was just another unspeakable aspect of Epiapia. You hurried out of the alleyway, your legs now stable enough to take you out of the underground market, and back up to the town surface. You took a slow, careful walk, not only making sure that being of darkness wasn't waiting for you somewhere, but also slinking and dodging through the townsfolk who couldn't see you because of your magical attire. You traced your steps back up the stairs from where you came, and into the upper streets again. Taggle said the building with the blue doors would be northeast, so you gathered your bearings and walked in that direction. The rest of the town was just as beautiful. Those round, white earthen buildings with their sharp roofs were all stunning. There were fewer people up here walking, just folks going about their business. You avoided them too. When you were sure you reached the furthest corner of the town, right when you were about to give up on this blue door, it appeared on one of the largest buildings around. You sprinted up to it. Taggle was right. You couldn't have missed the periwinkle blue door. It was huge, towering over the height of yourself. You had to crane your neck upwards just to see the top of it. You undid your outfit of obscurity, doing the movements in reverse. You knew the enchantment had dissipated when the soft fizzing of your clothes stopped. There was a silver chain to the left of the door, which you suspected was some kind of doorbell. You reached up to the chain, and with all your might, pulled the rope down. A chime sounded at the door. You waited, and you waited. Oh gosh. Perhaps no one was home, you thought. Wouldn't that be brilliant? You came all this way and you couldn't deliver what Taggle had asked. An almighty thud sounded inside the building, followed by another great noise. The creak of the door was so loud, like ancient cathedral doors being forced open against their will. The door split down the middle, unsealing what was inside. In the doorway was a concentration of the colour orange. Blinking, you wondered what exactly you were staring at, until everything came into focus. It was a face. A giant face. The soft, orange-toned skin of a woman was what you were looking at. Her cheeks were like 2 ripe peaches. Her grey-blue hair tangled in the head of the door, and her entire eyes were topaz blue. A giantess. She had to be. She took up the entire double doors. You instinctively stepped backwards, trying to get her whole face in your peripheral vision. She was astonishing. Halfway between the fae and the divine, the gentle nature of these species was legendary, and therefore such a nature was likely to be exploited by those who work against the matter of all things. Instead, these giants created a culture of hiding, agoraphobic for their advantage and endurance. When she looked down and spotted you, her expressions changed rapidly, from joy to consideration, and then to inquisitive. Though not a sound departed from her lips, she reminded you of theatre masks, the ones of comedy and tragedy. It was a little unnerving. But what was more concerning was how on earth did she fit in there? These buildings were made for the taller residents of Epiapian, so how on earth would a giant fit inside? She wasn't stuck, was she? When you seemingly gave no response back, this giantess locked her eyes to yours, and your mind was suddenly awash with strange metallic pangs and shrills. Like a muse to the sound of the spheres, you instinctively covered your ears, even though it did not help. Her expression snapped to one of concern. She didn't know you would have such an adverse reaction to her trying to communicate with you. You would just have to explain your purpose and hope she would understand, since you couldn't understand her. You apologised for the intrusion and your lack of knowledge on Epiapian languages, but you had been sent here to deliver a parcel from someone named Taggle? You hoped that you had arrived at the same address, and that she was expecting this delivery? You watched as a look of recognition erupted across her wide face in a toothy grin. Blinking rapidly, the giantess stopped for a moment, processing a thought, her lips miming several words before she pressed her lips together and spoke.
Taggle, yes. Delivery, inside, yes?
You couldn't help but smile and nod. You repeated her last 3 words back to her. So she nodded, disappeared into the shadows, and the doors automatically closed. For a second you thought you had been locked out before a smaller door materialised from the blue wood and opened for you to come inside. You took a deep breath and stepped inside, wondering how to navigate the darkness and when you would bump into her.